Welcome to another edition of The Odd Couple. Great to have you joining us today. And James, you always bring the coolest guests.
Man.
And I think you topped the list today.
Look here.
We have Keith with us today.
Yes, Keith Edmonds from Keith Edmonds Foundation. And Keith, welcome to The Odd Couple. And we just want to have a conversation with you, but with our audience, just tell them about who Keith Edmonds is and about your foundation.
Well, first, Chief always brings the coolest guest because he's the coolest guy, first and foremost.
He is.
There's
I
no
agree
doubt
with
about
you.
that.
Yeah.
Well, my name's Keith Edmonds, and I created the Keith Edmonds Foundation in 2016, and that's set to empower and assist victims of child abuse and transition them from victims to survivors. A little bit about me. In 1978, I was 14 months old when my face was held to an electric heater, resulting in the scars that you see on my face today. My mother's at the time boyfriend, a real-life monster is what I like to call him, and held my face and left me scarred for life, and doctors didn't know if I was going to live or die. And I had to go through the surgeries and the court proceedings and all that stuff, and luckily God was on my side, even though I didn't have a relationship with him. And I had some challenges as a juvenile, you know, starting to get into the drugs and alcohol, and hurting a lot of people. And I don't necessarily mean that in the ways of beating them up and killing people and stuff like that.
You mean emotionally?
Emotionally, absolutely. Yeah. And realizing that I was letting my scars out for everybody to see and feel. And then finally in 2012, I had a moment with a God I didn't know was there. And I said, I don't know if you're there, but if you're there, I need help. I was looking
and
at
you
my
were just
life.
by yourself and
yeah,
just reaching
I was actually
out.
drinking.
Yeah.
I was actually drinking when I quit drinking, which is pretty
Wow.
odd. Mm-hmm. But I said, I don't know if you're there. If you are, I need some help. And it was one of those things where it happens. And I haven't touched alcohol or drugs since 2012. And
that's awesome.
Sharing my story and getting out there.
That's awesome, man. I know with your foundation now in our community, how has it been received, and how as you're progressing with your foundation, how has it been the reception been?
Well, within Wilson County, it really went from 0 to 100. You know, being an outsider and saying, hey, this is what I want to do, it was kind of like I was drinking out of a fire hose, because everybody wanted to come along and be a part of what I was trying to do.
Right.
And,
locally.
Yeah, we have Camp Confidence, you know, which is a summer camp for kids that have been abused and neglected, and they come through the court system to get to us. And Cumberland University stepped up and said, hey, we want you to be here with your camp. You know, and the schools have been amazing. I spent a lot of time with MAP Academy, the modified academic program for the at-risk kids, and spent a lot of time with them. It's just doors opened, and they opened fast.
One other question: what's the biggest challenge you're facing with as it relates to the people that you serve? And you're saying you're trying to get them from victim to survivor and everything. What is the biggest challenge?
One of the biggest challenges, and there's actually many, there's several, is that they feel unworthy of that transition. Gotcha. I think that's the biggest one. You know, they feel that something horrible happened to them and they should stay down. They don't need to get back up.
It's a self-esteem problem more than anything.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And that is a very challenging thing, because if you look at it, it's almost like a generational curse.
Wow.
You know, and if you can transition one victim to a survivor, you're changing the whole next generations ahead of them. And that's what I keep trying to tell the kids that are at MAP Academy is like, if you take control of your life right now, you're going to change the next generation. I can prove it to you because you'll have kids.
That's awesome.
You know,
this is by this being the Odd Couple show, and this is going to be a thing because being a police chief and a police police officer, you're dealing with at-risk kids a lot. How does that bridge, or what should law enforcement do? What could we do better to bridge?
That's a great question.
That is a very good question. Yeah. You know, I think a lot of the impact that I'm able to have with these kids is the fact that I get on their level. Like they let me get down to where they're at. And I spend a lot of time with these kids. You know, if they're assigned community service and Judge feels like like I can make an impact in their life, then I do community service with the young adult.
That's
like
awesome.
I'm wiping down desk every day with a student right now after school, an hour a day after school,
Man.
and that allows me to get to their level. So when we talk about policing and getting involved, I think a lot of it is holding them accountable for their actions. Now, I understand in juvenile justice that there's things that are involved where you can only go so far in different things, but some of these kids, they just need time. And I say this all the time, that a child actually spells love Time, and it's by spending that time and
That's
being
awesome.
involved in their lives,
That
and
is
not
so
just
true.
saying go do something. And
Yes.
but from the policing aspect, like Officer C is the SRO at MAP Academy right now, and he does a great job of getting on their level. And there's a lot of kids that sit in his office because they have questions that they don't, that they're out wilding out, but they don't know, and they don't understand. I feel like the juveniles,
Well,
the
a lot
at-risk
of it's
ones,
reactionary too, isn't it, Keith?
Absolutely.
When you're hurting so much inside, and like you said, your self-esteem is really suffering, you act out with it, don't you?
well, there's one thing that we definitely know, and that's hurt people hurt people,
Excellent.
without question.
Yes.
And they can be a multitude of ways. I was an alcoholic, and I was drunk 6-7 nights a week, and I was out driving. And
Hold
I've
up, you
been,
talking about you or me?
well, me.
Because you went through some of the same things, didn't you?
Yeah.
But like being out there, I could have killed a family.
Sure.
Yes.
So now my pain is inflicted upon the next family. So
Yes.
it's that hurt people, and you see these kids, and that's what they are. They're just acting out.
Yes. Absolutely.
Your role with your inaction, how does that work with the parents of these kids?
A lot of parents want help. They don't know how to help their child. They want
Yes.
to, they just don't know how to. So a lot of them are amazed at, within a 3 to 5 week period, they tell me that the child's attitude has changed at home. And again, it's getting at that level. It's not like I'm doing anything different. I'm just talking to them almost as a peer, but holding them accountable as well. And that was stuff that was taught to me by my wrestling coach when I was in high school, because I was out of control. He was a very stern man. He is strong in his faith, and at that time I didn't have any faith. And I do the same thing with these kids that he was doing with me 25 years ago. So it's stuff that's instilled in you.
So he displayed that to you.
Absolutely.
And you used him as a model to begin to help others as well.
Everything I do with the young adults that I'm connected to is that exact thing, is getting on their level and holding them accountable. There's one girl that we're doing community service with that we're wiping the desk down, and she needed 2 hours. And she said, well, you could just sign this paper and give me another hour. And I said, if you think that I'm going to do that, then you're talking to the wrong guy. Like, you got me completely misunderstood, because
Right.
I'm holding you accountable for every
right.
hour that you have to give.
No, that's good. That's good.
It goes to accountability, I feel. And the
Yes.
more that I'm held accountable, the easier it is for me to hold other people accountable.
Keith, would you mind if we go back just a few years in your life?
Yeah.
I want to go back to this event that happened in your life that really changed the whole course
Oh,
of who you
totally.
are. One event
Yes.
that changed the course of your life completely.
Absolutely.
This one's more extreme, but there are less extreme cases where children are hurt to that degree as well.
Absolutely.
But this one thing changed the course of your life. Can you explain to us what happened during that time? Not what happened physically, but what happened emotionally to you, and how that kind of set your life in motion for that period of time.
Are we talking in 2012
No.
when Guy came in, or when I was abused?
Yes, when you were
Okay.
abused.
When I was abused, I became a ward of the state. So I was placed
Okay.
in foster care, and I had to go through that. And I have distant memories of it, the kids that I played with that were in the foster home. And my mother was eventually cleared of any
And you
wrongdoing.
were how old?
I was 14 months old when it happened.
Oh, my gosh.
By the time I was placed into state custody, I was 2 years old. And by the time I was placed back in custody of my mother, I was 4. So, as I was growing up is when I started to have these like I remember being at Kmart, and back in the day, Kmart was a thing, right?
Yeah.
And they had a photo booth, and I remember smiling and getting my picture taken, and then my mother yelling at girls behind her, and they were saying, "Why would you want a picture of that?" So I saw
Really?
the whole episode.
And you were how old?
4.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember asking on the way home, what was that about? Just like a child question.
Yes.
And she said that a mean man hurt you, and you're going to be okay, and you're going to be anything you want to be, and built me up into the person that I am today. So
That's amazing.
It is.
Keith, speak to some of the people that are going through similar situations that feel trapped in it as you did.
yes, for a long
And
time.
yes, and wanting to know, how do I get through this? How do I become a whole person
Yeah.
again inside?
Well, it's always going to be a journey. It's never going to be easy. It's not going to be one day that you look at your life and it's better. It's good. It's great. It's grand. For me, it took forgiving a man that scarred me for life. And when I talk about forgiveness, I talk about the journey of forgiveness. It doesn't mean that I want to play golf with my abuser, right? Like I want,
Come on.
I continue to forgive him daily. When I look in the mirror in the morning and I shave, I see my abuser. I see the effects of what he did, but that forgiveness is such a huge piece, and it's not for him. It's not like I'm forgiving him. I'm forgiving the situation that scarred me for life. So forgiveness is such a huge piece of transitioning, and also the tidbit of this, and this is very impactful. You do not drown by falling in the water. You drown by staying in the water, and it's your
Man, that's
choice
good.
to
That's
continue
excellent.
to
Yes.
stay in the water, or you can get out of the water and live that life that you're talking about,
That's
being whole.
Man,
Excellent.
that's awesome.
Can I bring up one more point?
Absolutely.
Forgiveness doesn't mean trust,
No.
but forgiveness means that I take you off the hook.
Yep.
I no longer am holding you bondage, and you're not holding me in bondage.
That's it.
But I don't have to trust you ever again. And I think people don't make that connection, and they feel like
that's right.
if I forgive somebody, I also have to trust them again. You don't.
Yeah. What's amazing to me is you start seeing your actions. Like when I became a teenager, a young adult, and I was getting arrested and I was doing these things, now where I sit, the whole time the abuser was winning even more. Like I was allowing
Yes.
him to dictate
Yeah.
my actions.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then he wins.
Yeah, he was winning the whole
Right.
time, and I had no idea. It's like,
Yes.
well, we're finally going to share my story in book form,
Good.
which I'm very excited about.
Yes.
Awesome.
Been working with a writer and getting that out and trying to share my message with there's hurt people all over. People are scarred. I wear my scars on the outside and the inside, but there are people walking around every day that are scarred. And we start sharing the message of what God did in my life and transitioning themselves. So,
That's awesome.
How can people connect with you?
all through Facebook, Instagram, all the stuff that I really don't understand. You can connect with the foundation at KeithEdmondsFoundation.org, and then you can connect directly with me with the speaking stuff at KeithEdmonds.com. So
Man, awesome,
Awesome.
man. Awesome.
So
Awesome to have you here.
this is a cool guy.
Yes, he is.
that's
Yeah.
a cool
Yes, he
guy.
is, man. Yes, he is. And just able to grateful to God for what he's doing and has done and is
Yes.
doing in his life and what he's doing for our community. And it's
I love our
it's a
community.
blessing, man.
I
Absolutely.
love our community.
That's awesome. If you're one of those people that Keith's been talking about that's really dealing with some inner things, because Keith, no matter what's on the outside, it's really inside
It's all inside.
that has to heal.
Yeah.
And you may be one of those. This is a great message. And the takeaway was you don't have to stay
Stay
there.
Nah, it's the drowning, man.
That's
The
it.
drowning. I like that analogy. So
Awesome.
that's it. Make sure you visit his foundation. Keith, thank you so much for joining us
Thank you.
today.
I appreciate it.
We have some great guests coming up in the future. Almost as cool as Keith.
It's not
And
true.
so don't miss a future episode of The Odd Couple. We'll
Yeah.
be back again. My good friend Brick and I will be back.
Until next time. Peace.
God bless you.